All right, let's continue with the fun because I ran out of memory in the car. But we were here on prompting. We have the most intrusive, which is physical prompt, and then followed from most to least, followed down would be modeling, which I'll show you what to do. Physical, I move you. I physically guide you on how to do it.
Like hand over prompting.
Let's say I'm teaching you to do this for yes, and I say do this, and you don't do it. Physical will be like, do this, all right? And now within the physical, you go from most to least. This is very intrusive, do this, and then would be 3 fingers, and then 2 fingers, and then would be only 1 finger. You want to do that. You don't want to have a moped where you go like, you move the cake. You want the individual to do it by themselves. But if he doesn't know how to do it, you have to train the person. Teaching somebody how to pedal a bike, and the guy's going backwards instead of forward. You gotta grab the foot and guide him. But you don't want to do that all the time. First of all, it's gonna hurt your back, and second of all, it's gonna be a moped doing it. You wanna gradually go from the foot to the ankle to the knee, and then let the person do it by themselves. Now, physical, that is physical. Then modeling would be riding the pedaling next to the person or showing him, this is how you do it, now you do it. That is the second most intrusive. After that would be a gesture, like, and then the last one, the least intrusive would be verbal, pedal. Pedal, pushing, pressing it down, pedaling forward, all that is just verbal, which is the least intrusive. So you need to find out for new behaviors that the person doesn't have in the repertoire, you gotta go from most to least. For behaviors that are in the repertoire, and you go from least to most. And that's how it works. Let's go to the next one. We're almost done over here. And then I'm gonna go over some behavioral principles, and then the next one would be on on ethics, but that would be the next time. All right, so antecedent interventions. Okay, remember, the antecedent is what happens, anything that happens before the behavior occurs. Then you have the behavior that actually occurs, and then you have the consequence. A, B, C. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. So antecedent intervention is you modify something that is not to happen prior to the behavior occurring. So if you know that a kid gets home and he gets bothered by loud music, you want to go ahead and, before the kid arrives and gets tantrum, turn off the music. That's an antecedent-based strategy. Versus a consequence. Okay? A consequence would be a behavior happens, you cry, and then the music is turned off. That is a consequence. Based intervention. But it's not an intervention, you're just reinforcing him crying. Or if you want a consequence, would be teaching him how to say, stop the music, please. Or turn off the music. Turn off the radio. That would be a consequence. You say that, and then I turn off the music, that is the consequence based intervention. Because you are modifying the behavior based on the consequence. But the other ones is you are modifying the antecedent to affect the behavior, means to not make it happen. Antecedent intervention is to prevent the behavior from occurring, in other words. Okay. And the consequence to teach what to do. Differential reinforcement. You have DRA, DRO, DRI.
That I need help with.
Okay.
I don't
DRA,
know.
what is DRA? If you don't say, I don't know.
I don't know.
DRA stands for differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. Meaning, you're going to do something else instead of the problem behavior. So let's say you bite your nails. I want to reinforce something else instead of that, because I don't want to reinforce biting your nails. So I'll teach you to, when you want to bite your nails, chew a gum. Okay. So that's alternative behavior. Instead of chewing on your nails, you chew on a gum. So every time you chew on a gum, I'm going to reinforce that behavior with whatever preference assessment we had. Versus when you bite your nails, I'm not going to reinforce anything. It's alternative behavior, something else.
Okay.
Instead of making a noise, I'm going to reinforce you singing a song. Instead of you going like that, oh my goodness, and slapping your head, I'm going to reinforce you, oh wow, look at this.
And every time you do that,
Versus hitting yourself, I'm going to reinforce that instead of this. Now we have DRI, which is differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior. A behavior cannot occur at the same time. So instead of biting your nails, I'm going to reinforce you grabbing your hands like this, ready hands. You cannot have ready hands and bite your nails. Well, you kind of can. So I will be like, okay, put your hands in your pocket. Here we go. Can you bite your nails now?
No.
I will reinforce you wearing gloves. Put your gloves on. Can you bite your nails now? So reinforcing an incompatible behavior. It can't happen at the same time. Reinforcing breathing versus crying. Right? When you're calm, you cannot be calm and crying at the same time. So I'm going to be reinforcing something that you cannot do at the same time. Reinforcing pedaling forward instead of pedaling backwards. Can you pedal forward and backwards at the same time? Can't do that. You either pedaling forward or pedaling backwards. So you're reinforcing an incompatible behavior. You either pedal forward or pedal backward. You cannot do both at the same time. You know what I'm saying? DRO, differential reinforcement of other behavior. So you are reinforcing, pay attention to that one. You are reinforcing the non-occurrence of the behavior. So I'm going to reinforce every time you don't have your fingers in your mouth. Oh, good job. Not biting your nails. Boom, I deliver the reinforcement. Added attention, praise, tangibles, escape, whatever it is. I'm going to reinforce the non-occurrence of the biting of the nails.
Okay. When you don't do it.
When you're not pedaling backwards, I'm going to reinforce that. Because I'm reinforcing the non-occurrence of it. The non-occurrence of pedaling backwards. Oh, you're pedaling forward all the time. Boom! Good job not pedaling backwards. Reinforcing. So we got DRA, DRI, DRO. Extinction. Okay, extinction is a behavioral principle, which is a behavior that was previously reinforced is no longer reinforced. And as a result, the behavior decreases. So, let's say an example. You go to a vending machine, your behavior of putting money in the vending machine was reinforced by dropping the food or the liquid or whatever you're buying from the vending machine. And now the vending machine is broken and it's no longer giving you anything even if you put the money. Your behavior of using that vending machine is going to decrease. So in other words, you're not going to go there anymore.
Okay.
You probably go to another vending machine, but that particular one, you go to a restaurant, you don't have a very good treatment, you no longer go over there. Because the treatment that was provided before is removed. So that reinforcement of you feeling good and having your way and all that is removed. Therefore, you're not attracted to going there. Or they no longer serve the food that you want. Let's say they discontinued the chicken, whatever, and you wanted that kind of chicken. So you no longer go there because they no longer have it. It doesn't matter how much you complain about it, they don't have it anymore. Somebody who you talk to them all the time, and they call you and you answer the phone, you talk to them, have a good time, all of a sudden you don't have much availability, they stop calling you. Because you don't answer the phone calls, you don't have time for them, you cannot reinforce that attention that they want. With attention, you cannot reinforce the behavior of them calling you with attention anymore, so they don't call you anymore.
Okay.
Now, the problem with extinction is the first part of it, when you remove the reinforcer, is going to go to the extinction burst. Extinction burst when the behavior frequency increases in the beginning. So, You cannot use extinction with dangerous behaviors. Somebody who's hitting themselves, oh, I'm going to ignore that. No, because it's going to increase in frequency and the guy's going to hurt himself more. So it's not ethical. Somebody who is aggressive, you cannot ignore that. You're going to extinguish it like that, remove the attention. Property destruction. The guy is breaking something. Like this break, oh, I'm going to ignore the behavior because I'm going to put it in extinction. If you break something really expensive, are you going to ignore that? No. So you're teaching now the kid to break things that are really expensive or commit a severe point of behavior. You got to be careful with the extinction burst. Extinction burst is really dangerous. So even though it works, you got to consider the extinction burst. Crisis emergency. Implement crisis emergency procedures according to protocol. For crisis emergency, you have to be trained for that. Okay, there are different crises. Professional crisis management like PCM and all that. You pass a course and they teach you the escalation techniques. But if you're not trained on that, it'll be really difficult. And if you don't have the training for it, it will be unethical to conduct any kind of crisis management. The best thing is de-escalation. When you know that the client is gonna emit a problem behavior, stop it immediately by redirecting the client to doing something else, distract the client to doing something else. De-escalation techniques.
Okay.
And the session notes, we have to have the date, the time, the setting where it was the home, community, school. Who do you meet? The client, the caregiver, teacher. What procedures were used during the session? What kind of intervention did you use? Data collected on problem behaviors for reduction. Data collected on replacement behavior for increase, the behaviors you want to decide to increase. Any kind of events that happen. And then the next session, what is going to be taken over. If you were supervised or without supervision for that day. And the programs that you used. And that's kind of the progress note. And then feedback is response appropriately to feedback and maintain and improve. When a supervisor tells you something, it's usually in your best interest. And, some people get defensive about it, But if I don't know, I'm being trained. So I have to take it constructive criticism. It's not going to be hurtful criticism. It's going to be constructive criticism. Constructive. The difference between constructive criticism and hurtful criticism. Hurtful criticism just points out the flaws or the errors and doesn't train you on anything. Oh, you don't know how to do this. You don't know how to collect data or something like that. You're not a good RBT. You're left void with a hole. You're not training anything. Now, constructive criticism is we need to go ahead and improve collecting data, and I'm going to train you how to do it. Okay. You need to improve how to implement DRA, DRO, DRI, and all that. This is how you do it. You're using the prompt that is more intrusive. When you use the less intrusive, let's go through the prompt procedure. So I train you on what you're doing wrong, and I train you on how to do it right. And then you should be receptive to feedback. In the same way, if you perceive that the feedback is not constructive, it's hurtful, you have to explain that to your supervisor. Hey, could you go ahead and train me on how to do it? Or is just complaining about it? We touched punishment, positive and negative punishment. Positive punishment is you adding a stimulus, a spank, a reprimand, telling the kid, don't do this, that you're adding that noise, that voice, a reprimand, don't do that, you're adding to that. And if the behavior decreases, that's positive punishment, a spank, positive punishment, electricity, splashing water, something like that is positive punishment. Negative punishment, you're taking things away. Oh, you don't do it, time out. They're taking time away from you. They're taking toys away from you and taking the PlayStation from you and taking money. You're taking the stimulus away so that the behavior decreases in the future. The problem with punishment, you have to exhaust. You have to exhaust positive reinforcement. There are two ways to control a behavior. It's called positive reinforcement controlling strategies, where you only use positive reinforcement. In other words, you pay the individual in the form of attention, tangible, sensory, or escape for emitting the behavior, so the behavior increases. Or the other one would be aversive controlling strategies. In the aversive controlling strategies, you have negative reinforcement. Believe it or not, negative reinforcement is an aversive controlling strategy because it has the presence of an aversive stimulus. So negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment, they are all aversive controlling strategies. So it's unethical to go to aversive directly without exhausting positive reinforcement. In the case of client M, you have to exhaust the PlayStation, the mall, the park, any preference assessment. Now, when he says, I don't want to work for nothing ever, I don't want to do it, period, then you could implement aversive controlling strategies, such as negative reinforcement and all that. But for punishment, you have to have a peer review committee review it, because, you cannot just apply punishment because you want to. It is unethical. So I think positive reinforcement works 100% for anything that you do in life. It's just having the reinforcement. When the kid says, I don't want to work for it, he doesn't know that there are stronger reinforcement available. Because the kid says, I don't want to work for the PlayStation, he's probably satiated on the PlayStation. But if you buy the ultimate game that came out just, now the PlayStation, he's bored with that old game, but now he's had all of a sudden now he wants a PlayStation. So when the individual says, I don't want anything, is basically he's satiating on that, or the task, you have to put it in the balance, the task is too difficult that it's worthless. Like, I'm gonna pay you $1 for you to unload a truck of concrete blocks. You're gonna do, no, even though it's positive reinforcement, I'll pay you for it, but the pay is not balanced. Now, if I'm gonna tell you, I give you $1 million, so I'm gonna go ahead and load it right now by hand, myself. I want the whole $1 million for myself. I don't want no assistance. I'm gonna hurt my back. I pay for the expense, so don't worry. You see how it changes?
Yeah.
So positive reinforcement works 100%. It's just having the preference assessment and having the tools. Some people want, that's why it's so difficult sometimes with adults, because adults want expensive reinforcers. I want a cruise for a week, whatever. Yeah, that costs a lot of money versus, Play-Doh, food, games, park activities. So reinforcers for children tend to be less expensive than for adults. That's why with adults, maybe it works, but the reinforcers are going to be so expensive that, but it works 100%. An adult is not. What do you think? It's so hard to rehabilitate somebody who's been in prostitution. It's really difficult, because in prostitution, she or he we used to make a lot of money, and now going back to Walmart or whatever for $8 an hour, I don't want to get rehabilitated. You know what I'm saying?
I saw a show like that. They were trying to better her life, but since it was taking too long, she would go back to
the old ways. But you get that person with a very good education, making a decent money. That person not gonna go back to that, unless drugs are involved. Because now drugs is sensory, and sensory is so difficult now because there is dopamine going on in the brain. Now there is something medical in it because it's sensory now and it's too strong. But if it's just for the money of it, and you have a good amount of money where you could pay your basic, you could probably get rehabilitated. Just a thought. Now, in the case of children, positive reinforcement works 100%. 100%. It's just a matter of applying it properly. That's why this is here for you to go there, not only to pass the exam, but when you're going to work with individuals, know your ABA and know behavior analysis, and that this thing works 100%. And if you use it properly and you have the knowledge, so that's why I encourage all of the people who are passing the exam, don't just pass the exam. You got to continuously study ABA and apply it and read the scientific literature, and you're going to see a lot of results with all your clients. So That's it for tonight. You have a wonderful day, and I hope that you pass the exam. We'll continue with this reviews, but you need to pass that exam, okay?